The bustling spaceport of Novaterra was a symphony of light and sound, with vessels of all sizes docking and departing. The air hummed with the interstellar dialects of 100 different worlds, interspersed with the beeping of cargo drones and the distant roar of engines. Amidst this chaos, Jason Mardell checked his datapad once more for the arrival details of the diplomatic shuttle from Vixara. Jason, appointed as the human diplomatic liaison, was a tall man with an easy smile and a reputation for his deft handling of interspecies relations. Today, he was tasked with welcoming Alara, a high-ranking diplomat from the elusive Vixaran Confederacy. As he made his way to the designated docking bay, he rehearsed the formal greetings in Vixaran, hoping his accent was passable. The shuttle doors hissed open, and a figure emerged, cloaked in the traditional garb of a Vixaran dignitary. Alara's eyes, luminous and wide-set, scanned the crowd before settling on Jason, who stood holding a placard with her name in both human and Vixaran script. "Welcome to Novaterra, Diplomat Alara. I am Jason Mardell," he said, extending his hand, a universal gesture of peace. Alara hesitated for a moment, observing the offered hand, then tentatively reached out her own. Her touch was cautious, and her voice, when she spoke, carried a musical quality. "I am pleased to meet you, Liaison Mardell. Your world is very vibrant." Jason smiled, lowering his hand. "I hope your journey was comfortable. If you'd like, I can show you to your quarters, or we can take a detour through some of the public areas of the spaceport. It might give you a flavor of what to expect during your stay." "That would be most informative," Alara replied, her tone warming slightly. As they walked, Jason pointed out various amenities and notable locations within the spaceport. They passed stalls selling exotic foods from across the galaxy, small parks filled with verdant plants, and lounges bustling with travelers. "Your spaceport is a microcosm of the galaxy," Alara observed, looking around with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "It is," Jason agreed. "Novaterra is a young colony, but we pride ourselves on being welcoming to all species. It's important, especially given our location on the galactic rim." They continued walking, and Jason introduced Alara to several members of the Novaterra Diplomatic Corps. Each introduction was marked by polite nods and the exchange of formalities. Alara's demeanor remained professional, but Jason noticed her interest in the small cultural nuances of each delegate. Finally, they reached the diplomatic quarters. "I hope you will find these accommodations comfortable," Jason said as he keyed in the entry code for her suite. "If there's anything you need to make your stay more pleasant, please let me know." Alara stepped into the suite and looked around appreciatively. "This is more than adequate, thank you, Liaison Mardell. Your attentiveness to my comfort is unexpected." Jason chuckled softly. "We strive to exceed expectations. Dinner will be held at the Central Pavilion tonight. Many of our local leaders are eager to meet you. But until then, the time is yours. Shall I leave you to rest?" "That would be appreciated. I look forward to our continued interactions, Jason." "Likewise, Alara." With a respectful nod, Jason exited the suite, the door closing silently behind him. As he walked back through the bustling corridors of the spaceport, Jason couldn't help but feel that this assignment might hold more surprises than he had anticipated. He looked forward to discovering more about this mysterious Vixaran diplomat and what her presence might mean for the future of Novaterra. The Central Pavilion of Novaterra was abuzz with excitement as the local dignitaries gathered for the welcome dinner in honor of Alara. The hall was decorated with an array of bioluminescent plants, casting a gentle glow over the assembly. Jason stood near the entrance, watching as Alara approached, her stride confident yet measured. "Alara, you look refreshed. I trust the accommodations were to your liking?" Jason greeted her with a warm smile. "They were quite comfortable, thank you. I am ready to meet your leaders now," Alara responded, her voice carrying a hint of anticipation. Jason led her towards a group of officials. "Allow me to introduce you to Mayor Jensen and Dr. Harlow, our Chief of Planetary Science." Mayor Jensen, a robust man with a jolly demeanor, extended his hand. "Welcome to Novaterra, Diplomat Alara. We are honored by your visit." Dr. Harlow, who was more reserved but no less friendly, nodded. "It's a pleasure to meet someone from Vixara. We're quite eager to learn about your technology and environmental practices." I am equally eager to discuss and explore our mutual interests, Alara replied, her tone diplomatic. The conversation shifted towards the dinner table, where dishes from various cultures were served. Jason observed as Alara interacted with the other guests, answering questions about Vixaran culture and inquiring about human customs. As they sat down to eat, Jason leaned in slightly. I hope you find the food to your taste. We've included some dishes that are considered delicacies on Earth. Alara sampled a small, delicately prepared appetizer. It is very different from our food, but it is intriguing. Tell me, Jason, what is this dish? That's called ceviche. It's originally from a place on Earth called Peru. The main ingredient is raw fish, cured in citrus juices. Intrigued, Alara took another bite. The flavors are very vibrant. It's unexpectedly pleasant. Jason smiled, pleased with her reaction. I'm glad you like it. Food is one of the ways humans explore and express culture. Each dish has a story. The meal continued with light-hearted exchanges and laughter, providing Alara a glimpse into the human way of mirth and camaraderie. After dinner, as the group moved to a more casual setting for drinks, Alara seemed more relaxed. Jason, this evening has been enlightening, Alara began, accepting a glass of wine. I admit, my preconceptions of humans were different. How so, if I may ask? Jason inquired, genuinely interested. I was under the impression that humans were more reserved, perhaps even hostile. But the openness and warmth I've experienced tonight suggest otherwise. Jason nodded, understanding her point. I think our species can sometimes be misunderstood. We value our diversity and strive for unity despite it. It's something we hope to share with all our interstellar neighbors. As the evening wound down, Jason and Alara found themselves walking along the viewing deck, overlooking the city lights below. The night was clear, and the stars shone brightly above, a silent testament to the vastness of the universe they shared. Seeing Nova Terra at night, under the stars, it's quite beautiful, Alara remarked, her eyes reflecting the starlight. It is, Jason agreed. It reminds us that there's so much out there to explore and understand. So many possibilities. Alara looked at him, her expression thoughtful. And perhaps, friendships to forge? Exactly, Jason said with a hopeful grin. Friendships that could bridge worlds. As they parted ways for the evening, Jason felt a sense of accomplishment. Not only had the dinner gone well, but he also sensed a real connection forming between them, one that might extend beyond mere diplomatic courtesy. As he headed back to his quarters, Jason was optimistic about the days ahead, hopeful for what they could achieve together. After a successful evening, Jason decided to invite Alara to explore one of Nova Terra's renowned attractions, the Botanical Gardens. The gardens were a sprawling complex of exotic flora from across the galaxy, illuminated by soft, ambient light that mimicked moonlight, providing a peaceful escape from the hustle of diplomatic engagements. Alara, would you be interested in a tour of our botanical gardens tonight? It's a place where many visitors find a moment of peace, Jason suggested as they left the pavilion. That sounds delightful, Alara replied, her eyes lighting up with curiosity. I am particularly interested in your planet's native species. As they entered the gardens, the air was fragrant with the scents of blooming flowers and fresh earth. Jason led her down a winding path lined with vibrant plants, each labeled with both their common and scientific names. This is one of my favorite spots, Jason said, stopping before a large, luminescent plant that cast a soft blue glow around it. It's called a luna bloom. It only flowers at night. It's beautiful, Alara observed, leaning closer to examine the delicate petals. We have a similar species on Vixara, but it glows red and only blooms once every 5 years. Their conversation flowed naturally as they strolled through the garden. Jason shared anecdotes about his early days on Nova Terra, and Alara spoke fondly of Vixara's vast landscapes. Tell me, Jason, Alara began, her tone tinged with humor. What made you choose a career in diplomacy? It was the diversity of life and culture in the galaxy that drew me in, Jason answered, chuckling. I wanted to be part of something larger than myself, to bridge the gaps between different worlds. Every day is a new challenge and a new opportunity to learn. And have you ever regretted this choice? Alara asked, her gaze meeting his under the starlit sky. Not once, Jason replied with a sincere smile. Especially not on nights like this. Their path took them to a quiet pond, where the water mirrored the stars above. They paused, watching the reflection of the cosmos on the surface. It's moments like these I find most fascinating about humans, Alara confessed as they sat on a nearby bench. Your capacity to find beauty and tranquility, to create spaces like these, it's not unique to us, Jason countered softly. I believe all sentient beings have that capacity. Perhaps it's something we can explore together, learn from each other. Alara nodded, her expression contemplative. I would like that. The night grew deeper as they continued their walk, eventually reaching a secluded gazebo. They sat, surrounded by the gentle sounds of the garden at night. Back on Earth, there's a saying, to walk under the stars is to truly know peace, Jason said, looking up at the sky. I think I understand that now, Alara responded, her voice low and full of wonder. Their conversation drifted to lighter topics, music, literature, the arts. Alara was keen to learn about Earth's cultural treasures, and Jason promised to arrange a viewing of classic human films and music. As the night drew to a close, they returned to the diplomatic quarters. The walk back was quiet, comfortable. At her door, Alara turned to Jason. Thank you for this evening, Jason. It has been enlightening. My pleasure, Alara. Good night. Good night, Jason. As Jason walked back to his own quarters, he felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a deepening curiosity about the enigmatic Vixaran diplomat. Their exchange tonight had opened new avenues for dialogue and understanding, and he looked forward to what the coming days might bring. The next evening, Alara invited Jason to her quarters for a more informal meeting. As Jason approached, he was struck by the subtle changes she had made to the space to make it feel more like home. Soft, ambient lighting similar to the glow of the botanical gardens they had visited the night before filled the room, and the air was lightly scented with a sweet, floral aroma reminiscent of the Luna blooms. Jason, come in. Alara greeted him warmly, stepping aside to let him enter. Thank you, Alara. You've made your quarters quite welcoming, Jason remarked, taking in the surroundings. It helps to have familiar comforts when you're so far from home, Alara explained. She motioned towards the sitting area. Please, have a seat. Would you like something to drink? Some water would be great, thank you, Jason replied as he settled into a plush chair. Alara poured water for both of them from a sleek silver pitcher and then joined Jason, handing him a glass. I've been meaning to talk to you about something, she began, her tone slightly hesitant. Of course, anything, Jason said, encouragingly. It's about my initial fears about coming to Earth, Alara confessed. Before I arrived, I was apprehensive. I had heard stories of human hostility and was prepared for a different reception. Jason nodded, understanding her concern. It's not uncommon to hear such stories, given our history and diverse cultures. But I hope we've been able to show you a different side of humanity. Yes, you have, Alara admitted. I expected hostility, perhaps even aggression. Instead, I found kindness and curiosity. You've been most gracious, and it's shifted my perspective significantly. I'm glad to hear that, Jason replied sincerely. It's important to us that you feel safe and respected here. Alara sipped her water, her gaze thoughtful. My people can be cautious, sometimes to our detriment. We've often missed opportunities to connect with others because of our fears. Perhaps this visit will be the start of changing that, Jason suggested optimistically. I hope so. Jason, can I ask you something personal? Alara's eyes met his, searching. Of course, Jason answered, intrigued by her seriousness. How do you overcome your own fears when facing new cultures or potentially hostile situations? Jason considered her question for a moment. It's about finding common ground, he explained, focusing on what we share rather than what divides us, and always approaching with respect, trying to understand rather than to overpower. That's a valuable perspective, Alara remarked, her expression easing into a smile. It's comforting, in a way, to learn that courage isn't the absence of fear but facing it with determination. Yes, exactly, Jason agreed, pleased with her understanding. And sometimes, it leads to unexpected friendships and alliances. Their conversation moved on to other topics, Alera's upcoming engagements, the cultural events Jason had planned for her, and discussions on potential collaborative projects. As the night progressed, the initial formalities faded, replaced by genuine interest and laughter. Before long, it was late, and Jason stood to leave. "Thank you for inviting me tonight, Alera. It's been enlightening." "Thank you, Jason, for sharing your thoughts and for listening to mine," Alera responded, walking him to the door. "I look forward to learning more from you." "As do I," Jason replied, stepping into the hallway. "Good night, Alera." "Good night, Jason." As the door closed behind him, Jason felt a sense of progress, not just in diplomatic terms, but in forming a bond that might bridge their worlds. Walking back to his own quarters, he was hopeful about the days ahead, confident that they were on the path to something meaningful. The following day, Jason invited Alera to participate in a cultural exchange workshop designed to deepen understanding between human and Vixran delegates. The workshop was hosted in one of Nova Terra's community halls, a large, open space with views of the cityscape. "Today, we're going to explore something a bit different," Jason explained as they walked towards the venue. "We'll be focusing on nonverbal communication, gestures, facial expressions, and even touch. It's a key aspect of human interaction." Alera nodded, her interest piqued. "Vixarans also place great emphasis on nonverbal cues, though I suspect our interpretations might differ." As they entered the hall, they were greeted by Dr. Simon Hayes, a cultural anthropologist. "Welcome, Alera. We're honored to have you here," Simon said, extending his hand in greeting. Alera, now familiar with the gesture, shook his hand warmly. "Thank you, Dr. Hayes. I look forward to learning more." The workshop began with a brief lecture by Simon on the basics of human nonverbal communication. Humans use touch to convey support, compassion, or even as a greeting, Simon explained. It's deeply ingrained in our social interactions. After the lecture, the participants were invited to engage in a series of exercises. Jason and Alera paired up for an activity designed to demonstrate the human way of showing comfort. "May I?" Jason asked, indicating that he would demonstrate a comforting gesture. "Please," Alera consented, slightly tense. Jason gently placed his hand on Alera's shoulder, a universal gesture of reassurance. "In human culture, this is a common way to offer comfort," he explained softly. Alera observed her own reaction to the touch, initially stiff, but slowly relaxing. "It's quite calming," she admitted, a hint of surprise in her voice. "Would you like to try?" Jason asked, stepping back to give her space. Alera mimicked the gesture, her hand slightly hesitant. "Like this?" "Yes, exactly," Jason encouraged, smiling at her effort. "How do you typically show comfort in Vixran culture?" "We often use vocal harmonics, soft tones that are soothing," Alera explained. "Physical touch is used less frequently." The workshop continued with other participants sharing and demonstrating their own cultural gestures. Alera and Jason observed and participated, their understanding of each other deepening with each interaction. As the workshop concluded, Simon approached them. "How did you find the session?" "It was enlightening," Alera responded. "Understanding these differences is vital, especially in contexts like ours." "I agree," Jason added. "It's about building bridges, not just between individuals but between cultures." With the afternoon drawing to a close, Jason and Alera decided to walk back to the diplomatic quarters together. The earlier awkwardness had given way to a comfortable camaraderie. "Jason, I appreciated the exercise today," Alera said as they walked. "It's interesting how something as simple as a touch can mean so much." "It's one of the things I love about my job," Jason replied. "We find ways to connect, even across the stars." Their conversation shifted to lighter topics, favorite foods, hobbies, and tales of their travels to other planets. It was clear that the day's events had not only taught them about each other's cultures, but had also forged a closer bond between them. "Thank you for today," Alera said as they reached her quarters. "I feel I've gained not just knowledge, but also a friend." Jason smiled, pleased with the day's outcome. "And I'm grateful for both," he replied. "Good night, Alera." "Good night, Jason," she said, her smile reflecting a newfound appreciation for the nuances of human interaction. As Jason walked away, he reflected on the day's lessons. The workshop had been a success, not just in its educational goals, but in its ability to bring them closer, bridging the gap between human and Vixaran with understanding and empathy. Several days after the workshop, Alara approached Jason with a proposition that marked a turning point in their growing friendship. They met in a small, quiet lounge reserved for diplomatic staff, a neutral space filled with soft lighting and comfortable seating. Jason, our last session at the workshop was quite enlightening, Alara began, her tone serious yet open. I've been reflecting on our discussions about human expressions of comfort and affection. I would like to understand more about this aspect of human interaction. Jason, sensing the importance of this conversation, nodded attentively. Of course, Alara. What specifically are you interested in exploring? Alara paused, searching for the right words. I am curious about the human experience of pleasure, not just in a physical sense, but emotional as well. How these experiences are intertwined. Jason considered her words carefully, aware of the sensitivity needed. Pleasure, in many forms, is an important part of human life. It strengthens bonds and enriches our emotional landscape. Are you referring to something specific? Alara met his gaze, her expression earnest. Yes, the intimacy between individuals. How it begins, how it is expressed. Understanding her inquiry's depth, Jason suggested a more private setting for such a personal discussion. Would you be comfortable talking about this at my quarters? It's a more appropriate place for privacy. Alara agreed, and they walked together to Jason's quarters, a space he had made warm and inviting, reflective of his personality. Once seated, Jason started gently. Human intimacy often begins with communication, like what we're doing now, sharing thoughts, feelings, experiences. From there, it might evolve into physical expressions, touch, like we practiced, but also more intimate forms. Alara listened intently, her curiosity piqued. And these expressions, how do they manifest? Jason explained, choosing his words with care. It might start with something as simple as a touch on the arm, a hug, or holding hands. These are gestures of affection and comfort. If both individuals feel a deeper connection, it could lead to kissing, which is a significant form of human intimacy. Alara considered this, then inquired, and this leads to a deeper relationship? Yes, in many cases. It's a way of showing trust and deep affection. When two people share kisses, it can enhance their emotional connection, leading to a relationship that includes physical pleasure, Jason elaborated. Alara's education in her own culture had been thorough but clinical. This human perspective was new to her. Could you show me what you mean by a kiss? I read about it, but the descriptions are lacking. Jason felt a surge of caution, but also a genuine desire to help her understand. I can, but only if you're completely comfortable. It's very personal, and I want to respect your boundaries. After a moment of consideration, Alara nodded. I would like to understand. With mutual consent, Jason leaned forward slightly, giving Alara the space to retreat if she chose. When she remained still, he gently pressed his lips to hers in a soft, chaste kiss. The moment was brief, and when he pulled back, he watched her reaction closely. Alara was silent for a moment, processing the experience. That was pleasant, calming, yet exhilarating. That's a good way to describe it, Jason said with a gentle smile. It's supposed to feel good, affirming. I see why it holds such significance in your culture, Alara remarked, a note of wonder in her voice. It's powerful in its simplicity. As they continued to discuss, the night deepened their understanding of each other's cultures and emotions. The barrier of alien and human seemed less significant in the shared exploration of fundamental human experiences. When it was time to part, Alara stood, a serene smile playing on her lips. Thank you, Jason, for this evening. I have much to think about. Jason stood as well, respectful and pleased with the trust she had shown. Anytime, Alara. I'm here if you have more questions. Good night, Jason. Good night, Alara. As she left, Jason felt a profound connection had been forged, not just in the name of diplomacy but in the universal pursuit of understanding and empathy. The following morning, Jason and Alara met at a small cafe nestled within the bustling commerce district of Novatera. The cafe, known for its serene ambience and collection of global cuisines, was a popular spot among the diplomatic community. Over steaming cups of coffee, Alara having grown fond of this human staple, they discussed the emotional insights from the previous night. Alara, I've been thinking about our conversation last night, Jason began, breaking the early morning quiet between them. It's important that we also consider how our explorations might be perceived by others in our respective cultures. Alara nodded, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. Indeed, Jason. The boundaries we navigated are not just personal but deeply cultural. We must tread carefully. Jason took a sip of his coffee, considering his next words. Exactly. While I believe understanding each other's emotional and physical expressions can bridge gaps, it could also raise concerns about appropriateness or misunderstandings. Alara looked up, her gaze meeting his with a clear sense of shared concern. Yes, and while I value greatly the personal trust and rapport we are building, we must ensure it serves a greater purpose in fostering broader intercultural understanding. Jason was impressed by her foresight. Perhaps we could frame our experiences as a part of a larger dialogue about human and Vixaran relations. Show it as an example of how deep understanding can be achieved responsibly and respectfully. That could work, Alara agreed, a small smile forming. We could even present a joint report or a series of talks to our respective leaderships, outlining the benefits and the boundaries of such cultural exchanges. Encouraged by her enthusiasm, Jason leaned forward. I like that idea. It's proactive and ensures transparency. It also sets a precedent for future interactions between humans and Vixarans. Alara nodded, visibly relieved by the plan. I will start drafting some ideas for how we can structure these talks. It seems essential to convey the nuances of our interactions, and I'll arrange meetings with my superiors to introduce the concept, Jason added. With your input, of course. Their conversation then shifted to more immediate matters, upcoming cultural events that Alara was scheduled to attend. Jason described each event, noting which ones might offer more insight into human social behaviors and which might be more formal. As you've become more comfortable with human customs, perhaps the upcoming music festival would be enjoyable? Jason suggested, trying to mix pleasure with their ongoing cultural exchange. Alara considered this, a touch of excitement in her voice. I've read about human music's diversity and emotional range. It sounds fascinating. It's settled then. We'll go to the festival together. It'll be a fun, informal way to further our discussion about emotional expressions, Jason decided, pleased to blend work with a more relaxed outing. As they finished their coffee, Jason and Alara agreed to meet later in the week to refine their plan for presenting their cultural exploration to their superiors. They stood together, the morning sun casting a warm glow around them. Thank you for the coffee and the conversation, Jason, Alara said, her tone appreciative. It's always a pleasure, Alara, Jason responded, feeling the solidifying bond of not only diplomacy but genuine friendship. They parted ways, each reflecting on the evolving dimensions of their relationship, professional, personal, and cultural. The careful navigation of their interactions seemed to be leading them to new heights of mutual understanding and respect. As they walked away from the cafe, both felt a renewed sense of purpose and anticipation for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The closing ceremony of the diplomatic summit approached, and the atmosphere at the central conference hall of Novatera was charged with a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. Alara and Jason had spent the past days preparing their joint presentation, a reflection on their cultural exchange and the personal growth each had experienced. As they stood backstage, reviewing their notes one last time, Jason turned to Alara with a supportive smile. Are you ready for this? Alara nodded, her usual calm demeanor tinged with a trace of nervous energy. As ready as I'll ever be, thanks to you. The pleasure has been all mine, Alara. Let's show them what we've achieved. The hall was filled with representatives from various human colonies and Vixaran sectors, all eager to hear about the outcomes of the summit. The moderator introduced Alara and Jason, and they walked onto the stage to a round of polite applause. Jason took the lead, beginning the presentation with a warm greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand here today not just as representatives of our respective cultures, but as advocates for deeper understanding and respect across them. Alara continued, over the past weeks, we've embarked on a journey of discovery about each other's customs, emotional expressions, and the value of interpersonal relationships. We've learned that despite our differences, the foundation of trust and understanding can lead to surprising revelations about ourselves and each other. Jason displayed images of their various activities, visits to cultural sites, participation in workshops, and informal meetings. These images capture more than moments. They capture the essence of our growing partnership. Turning to more serious matters, Alara explained, our explorations were conducted with sensitivity and a commitment to maintaining the dignity and norms of both our cultures. We navigated complex emotions and cultural boundaries with the utmost respect for each other's heritage. Jason then discussed the tangible outcomes. As a result of our exchanges, we propose a series of cultural liaisons programs designed to foster similar exchanges among more of our people. These programs would not only enhance diplomatic relations, but enrich our communities. Alara spoke about potential challenges and the strategies they had developed to address them. We are aware of the complexities involved in such interactions. Our approach, grounded in mutual respect and informed consent, ensures that these exchanges are both enriching and appropriate. The audience listened intently, many nodding in agreement as the significance of their work became evident. After the presentation, the floor was opened for questions, and many delegates expressed interest in how they could implement similar initiatives. As the session drew to a close, Jason and Alara thanked the audience. The applause was enthusiastic, a recognition of their efforts and the potential impact of their work. Backstage, Alara turned to Jason, a smile spreading across her face. We did it, Jason. It went even better than I hoped. Jason grinned back, offering his hand in partnership and friendship. We sure did, Alara. This is just the beginning, though. There's so much more we can do together. As they left the stage, their conversation turned to plans for the future, both for their intercultural initiatives and their personal commitments to continue working together. The bond they had formed, built on shared experiences and mutual respect, was set to become a cornerstone of the new era of human-Vixaran relations. Walking away from the conference hall, they were not just diplomats from two different worlds but pioneers of a new understanding, ready to face whatever challenges and joys lay ahead in their continued journey.